Welcome to Wine Soundtrack USA. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world in 30 answers. Discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack. This is Allison Levine, and today I am with Justin Knight, the winemaker of Danza del Sol Winery and Masia de la Vinya Winery, two wineries in Temecula Valley. So, Justin, welcome to Wine Soundtrack, and why don't you give us a little understanding about how these two wineries are one?
Sure. Yeah, so Masia de la Vinya and Danza del Sol Winery, the reason I put them together is because we share an owner. So we call them sister wineries. Danza del Sol is higher production. Masia is a little bit more, how would you say, boutique.
Okay.
Kind of a laid-back vibe, and Danza's where it all happens. So our main production building is at Danza. We see a lot more visitors here at Danza, and Masia's more laid back and less production, like I said. So those are the reasons why I listed them together. But each winery has its own special vibe and wine list as well.
Great. So let's talk about that. I mean, you're the winemaker for both of them. So tell me, sort of describe Danza del Sol.
Sure. Danza is more of a Mediterranean. So we kind of delve into a lot of different wine regions all around that area. You know, Bordeaux, Rhone, Italian. We do a little bit of Portuguese over at Masia and Spanish. That's kind of what we try and gear towards. Not to say that we don't have something for Bordeaux drinkers there, but we primarily dive into Spanish over there at Masia.
Okay. So Masia is more Spanish, and then you said Mediterranean here, and case production of each label?
Yeah, Danza varies between 15 and 8,000, depending on the year. And Masia hovers around 3,000 to 5,000 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are all of the wines from both wineries direct to consumer?
Correct. We do not wholesale anything. Everything is DTC.
Wow. Okay, well, there we go. Two brands. And acreage. I mean, do you own all your own vines? Are you purchasing from anywhere? How many acres do you have? And if you can get a little more specific to some of the primary grapes you're growing.
Sure.
Or how many grapes are you growing?
Sure.
I don't know.
We grow about 9 varietals.
Okay.
Probably, actually, now that I think of it, we just were acquired by a Ken Smith. That's our new owner. Previously, it was Bob Olson, and Ken actually owns 10 acres of vineyard that we have inherited. So we've had Zinfandel and Riesling and a couple other things that we don't grow. So we're probably up to 13 varietals, about 50 acres.
Yeah. And all estate fruit?
No. We purchase a lot locally. We purchase about half of what we produce locally, yeah.
Wow, okay. So you're pretty busy making a lot of wines for two labels, but I'm curious, what is your first memory relevant to wine?
Oh. My mom is what comes to mind, yeah. She was a big wine drinker, loved wine, white wine specifically, you know, Pinot Grigio, Chardonnay, you know, the classics. That's probably my earliest wine memory.
It's mom drinking wine.
Yeah.
And now that you're of age and old enough to be drinking wine and have been drinking wine for a little bit, I'm not sure how much you've explored the world of wine, if you're really focused on a particular region, but was there a particular wine that stands out as one of those aha moments that maybe set you on your path or, you know, opened a world to you that you didn't know?
Well, I came into the industry extremely green, I'll say that. It probably took me a couple harvests to really have an aha moment. And in the industry, I didn't even start in production. I started in the tasting room. It was kind of a bottom to the way up type of transformation. I started out actually as a barback in this tasting room at Danza. And 12 years later, which is to current day, I've been the winemaker here now for 5 years. And I was assistant winemaker before that. The aha moment is, I remember a Pinot Grigio which is funny because to me it kind of is like a boring varietal that everyone knows about. Not to say that it can't be unique and beautiful in its own right, but I like to explore things maybe that I've never heard of. Vermentino, Italian. That was my biggest aha moment for me as a winemaker.
An Italian one or a domestic one?
Domestic, grown locally, Temecula. Yeah, we grow actually kind of, I won't say a lot based on other regions, but for us, a lot of Vermentino in the valley.
Huh.
Yeah.
And, have you spent time traveling around and exploring other wine regions domestically or internationally?
Well, domestically, yeah. I've been up north, Sonoma, I've been to Lodi, I've been to Napa, and I've been down south to the Valle of Guadalupe. So still Sudai local. It's like
it's closer to you than many other people.
Yeah, a couple hours from me. So that would be my extensive. I haven't been abroad to taste wine.
Not yet.
No, not yet. I would like to. I've had the opportunity, but for whatever reason, those opportunities kind of coincide with harvest, and there's no way.
Well, so if we were to come into your home, what sort of wines do you like to drink on a regular basis? What would we find in your wine fridge?
Dry whites. Yeah, that's my go-to, even when it's winter. Dry whites are where I'm going.
And any particular grapes or regions, or is it all your own wine?
Well, yeah, I do have a homer palate, I will say that. But no, I do actually enjoy crisp, dry. Crisper the better, drier the better, even slightly acidic at times. Vermentino, I said that already. But Verdelho, I really enjoy a nice Sauvignon blanc, not necessarily in the New Zealand style, something picked maybe a little bit later. Those are kind of what I gravitate towards, yeah.
Anything really good you opened recently that you drank?
Well, I'm going to transition. I say whites, but...
But you're an equal opportunist, I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, I drink primarily locally, I will say that. I try and keep it, how do you say, support local. But I just had a 2018 from Justin Winery that was a Cab Sauv, excuse me. That was amazing, of course. But other than that, I like to support a lot of people that are on Deep Portola Road, which is where we're located. So I kind of stay local for the most part.
Stay local. So, you work with a number of grapes, and I'm wondering if you feel that there's a such thing as a perfect variety, and if so, do you have one?
For our region or just specifically?
Either. However you want to take that question. How about for the region?
For the region, I'm gonna gravitate towards Rhone and Spanish and Italian. I'm gonna keep emphasizing those because we mimic that environment. We're pretty warm here for a wine region, but we do have extremely cool nights, and that's what really allows us to do what we do. The temperature change is drastic, 50 plus degrees. So that cool down at night is what really allows the grapes to mature properly. If we didn't, there would be no way we could do that here.
But not one specific grape there. You mentioned 3 regions that they grow a lot of different grapes, which obviously works here.
Yeah, and to your point, we're able to grow a lot of grapes pretty well down here that come from those regions. Not to say we can't do some Bordeaux's, but they're not going to be your Napa Cabs. They're going to be different, and they're fine in their own right. But those are the regions that we really do well down here, like Syrah, Grenache, our ones, Mourvèdre. Those are great varietals down here.
So, for you as a wine drinker, I think I know the answer. Red, white, rosé?
White. And then to make is still white. And if I had to pick one that I don't know if this is going to be next, at least want to make is rosé.
Well, this was as a drinker, but
yeah,
as a drink,
still.
I guess it's equal, right?
Yeah, it'd be equal. a lot of winemakers liken their wines to their kids type of thing, but you still pick a favorite. We make quite a bit of sweets because we cater to a lot of different clientele here. That's my least favorite.
Yes, to make and drink.
Yes.
Both.
Yeah.
And as a drinker, still or sparkling?
Still.
Okay. So you're drinking, you love crisp, white, refreshing wines.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious how you approach that with food and wine pairing. I mean, do you believe, I mean, you're younger, probably more experimental in some ways, different generation, but the old adage of fish and white wine, meat and red wine. How do you approach food and wine pairing? Do you think there are any rules people should follow or anything to look for, or just you like your crisp whites and they go with your big steak if that's what you want?
I don't follow any rules when it comes to pairing wines, and I don't think anyone should. Honestly, I think you should do whatever caters to your palate because each palate is different. 100 people, you ask each one what their favorite wine is. Maybe they'll say the same wine or same varietal, but they're not going to articulate it the same way. They're not going to pick up the same aromas. Everything is extremely subjective, and thus you should pair whatever you want to drink and whatever you want to eat together. That's what I say.
And I mean, are you looking for harmony in the food and wine at all, or are you just looking for, hey, like I like it that it doesn't really matter how they work together?
No, I would suggest looking for harmony. I would suggest for looking for something that elevates both the food and the wine that you're drinking, of course. You don't want things to clash.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to... it's over at that point. So like with like or opposites. Crisp with spice usually works really well. Obviously, everyone's heard of the big reds and a fatty steak. Those are pretty opposite as well. So like with like or opposites is what I usually suggest.
Are you a big, do you cook a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
Ah. So for somebody who hasn't had the pleasure to taste your wines yet, and obviously we're talking about two brands, but both really focused on Mediterranean-style wines, what do you think they're missing out on?
For our wines, I would say they're done in the New World style. They're picked typically a little bit later, which means their alcohol is a little bit higher. And you get a little bit more overripe to just ripe notes on the nose and in the mouthfeel. Some wines that are picked a little too early, maybe they're not tasting to their optimal, what they could be. I would say, try our whites, try our reds. We have something for everyone. That's kind of our motto around here. We do so many different wines. Last week I did bottling and we had 25 different labels between the two.
Wow.
And that's only the reds. And we do sweets, we do rosés and whites.
How many different bottlings do you think you do in total?
A year we do 2 to 3.
No, I mean, how many different SKUs across the board?
Oh gosh. 50?
Wow.
Probably.
Well, so then this is going to make my next question really, really hard.
Okay.
If space aliens were to land on your property right now, which of your wines would you want to welcome them with?
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so what we like to do here is we like to build your palate. We suggest to everyone that comes through the door to start with the dry whites, then go to rosé, and then go to reds. So I would probably start them off with our lightest white wine, which is probably the Pinot Grigio. Just based on what we would do normally, treating them as if they're one of our customers, I guess.
They're not strange. You're actually inviting them to stay. You're not just sending them off with your best bottle. You're saying, stay for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I'm always curious. This is a question I like to save for the younger people. But have you? We all drink sometimes a little too much. It might be beer you drink too much of versus wine. I don't really know. But I'm wondering if you found any secret cures to hangovers.
Well, everyone says greasy foods. So, I don't feel like that works. I would say popping some aspirin and taking a nap. It's like the best. Or I have found to work through it, just go for a run. As miserable as it is, it does help.
So not drinking anymore.
No. Well, it depends, I suppose, what point you're at. If there's levels.
All right. So you've been working here, you said 12 years, but you've been the winemaker for 5 years. And you have a lot of acreage surrounding you, a lot of vines surrounding you. How much time do you spend out in the vineyards?
Percentage-wise of my day in the vineyard, probably 25%.
And so you know these vines pretty intimately. And so I'm curious, as you nod along with me, what sort of communication you have with your vines? Do you talk to them? Do you reprimand them? Do they talk to you?
Yeah, I would say they talk to me. They tell me if they need more water. They tell me how they're feeling. They tell me if they're sick. There's a number of things that you can do just by looking at them. So I would say the communication is, pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And moving it into the cellar, do you talk to the wine in the barrels? Do you play music to it? I mean, do you feel that there is a communication that happens with the wine, or it just does its own thing and you let it go?
I liken wine to a being. I do. And sometimes it's angry, and you have to listen to it and what it's telling you, and kind of, maneuver to a place where it's going to be happy. And I do kind of communicate in that way. We check our wines here often in the barrel, and you have to try them. You have to see where they're headed. If you don't, you have to be ready. You have to be on your toes, and you need to be working ahead of the game. Mm-hmm. You can't be reactive. You have to be, proactive.
Well, thinking about proactive, are there things that you, any signs or omens or predictors that kind of let you know what a harvest is going to be like? If you're being proactive, I know you're always looking ahead and you're spending time, checking things out.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can actually get an idea of next year's harvest based on this year's harvest. A lot of people don't know that. The buds that the vines show, which is where the shoots come from, they actually hold a lot to tell you. They hold actually 2, sometimes 3 years within the bud, their growth. And if you cut them open and you look through a microscope, you could actually see the fruit that's there for next year. Huh. The flowering buds, they're there. So it tells you a lot. If you're unhealthy this year, maybe you have less fruit, less buds. That could be an indicator of what is to come next year or the following.
Wow. And in terms of Mother Nature, you live here in Temecula. We are in the middle of a hot climate. It is over 100 degrees, and that's not an uncommon thing during the day here. I'm curious, each vintage tells a different story, and obviously there is variation from year to year. Some days you get down to 90. But I'm curious, in the number of years that you've been here, how much variation do you see year from year? Is it small nuanced things, or do you see some big differences from year to year, and what sort of differentiates that?
No, we actually have pretty varying weather here year over year. For example, this year has been abnormally warm for now. During our growing season in the beginning parts, we barely hit 80 degrees from maybe March on to June. Mm-hmm. And when July hits, it usually ramps up to the 90s. And right now, in August is typically when we'll see 100 or so. But over the last 5 years, we haven't really been hitting 100 degrees that often. So it's actually becoming more like some of the regions up north. They're getting a little bit warmer, and we're kind of just getting less warm. It's weird because, when I first started, it was like getting 100 degrees every single day, which was 10 years ago. And now it's like, well, we maybe hit 100 degrees 10 days out of the year now down here. So it's kind of bizarre how that's transitioning.
Huh. Are there any good luck rituals that you've established that you do at the start of harvest, whether for yourself personally or for your team?
I wouldn't say it's luck. I actually learned this from a local winemaker here, a gentleman that's been here for a long time. The winemaker should, or at least he thinks, always clean out the press or the must of a tank the first and the last time you have red wine. Just to, I don't know, start the morale and, show that you're ready for work, I suppose. And, if you can't do it at the end of the harvest, maybe it's time to hang it up.
It's a little tradition kicking in there. I like that. Okay. So I'm curious. You started, you said, as a bar back, and you kind of worked your way up into being a winemaker. When you were little, or even before that, what did you want to be when you grew up? I mean, was making wine something you always had in the back of your head?
No, never. I knew I wanted to do something with my hands, make something. When I got out of high school, I guess I strived to be in architecture. That was my first goal, I suppose. And I kind of slowly went away from that. And it's kind of funny because after I started to go to school and I dropped out of school, my dad said, okay, either you're going back to school or you're going to get a job. You're not going to... And I said, well, I'll figure out what I'm going to do with my life. I'll take the summer off, the cliche thing.
Uh-huh.
And he said, nope. Go get a job or go to school, like I said. So I got a job.
And that was the bar back?
It was bar back, yeah. Yeah. So, and the rest is history.
It opened up a world to you.
Yeah.
So when you're not working, making wine, what do you like to do in your free time?
Well, I have 2 young children. So free time for me is like gold. I don't really have any. My oldest is 2, and then my youngest is 4 months old.
Oh,
so
well, congratulations.
Thank you. But free time is a thing of the past.
I bet romantic evenings are also a thing of the past.
Oh yeah, yeah. Dinner's out, no more. It's we're not working. We're watching the kids.
So if you were going to plan a romantic evening for you and your wife, or a partner, maybe it's not going to be super elaborate or going out to dinner, but what sort of wines would you open to set the mood of a romantic evening and not just a night of freedom? Or maybe they're the same thing.
Yeah, use your time wisely, right? So my palate for reds and whites are completely opposite. Like I said, I like crisp whites, but I like big reds, something tannic that's going to dry your mouth out. So, and my wife doesn't discriminate either. Whatever I open, she's going to drink too. So probably I'd lean towards the red if we're in the evening,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So if you're happy, she'll be happy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Usually it's vice versa, but yeah.
But when it comes to wine,
Yeah.
she's easygoing with wine.
She is. Yeah. She lets me kind of do whatever I want to do with the wine.
And any sports or activities you used to like to do?
Yeah. I played a lot of soccer growing up and football.
Uh-huh. Who's your team?
Manchester United. I've been to England twice, got to see them play, and I used to play there a little bit when I was younger. A couple of months, didn't last very long, but so that's what I would say.
So if Manchester were to win the World Cup, it wouldn't be winning the World Cup. If they were to win their championship, which of your wines would you want to present to the team to enjoy and celebrate?
Wow. Typically you'd see a sparkling, but to be a little different,
One of your flagships, one of your favorites.
probably the Meritage blend. So Cab Sauv, Cab Franc, Merlot.
And that's under which label?
Danza del Sol, yes.
Okay.
We've a black label series, which is one wine from several regions. We have GSM, so Rhone. We have Super Tuscan, so Tuscany. And we have a Madrona, which is a Rioja style.
Wow. Okay, so, see, I'm pulling wines out of you there. So you mentioned that you had another winemaker give you a piece of advice when it came to harvest. We're obviously given a lot of advice throughout our lives, from our parents to our mentors to our teachers. I'm wondering if there is a piece of advice someone gave to you along the way that you try to live or work by.
It's hard to come up with one. I've had so many good influencers in my career so far. When I did start, I was 18 years old, kind of a kid that didn't know what he was doing, didn't know what he wanted to do with his life. And the original winemaker here, his name was Mike Tingley. And he kind of took me under his wing, and my first official job in production was lab tech. So he taught me how to do lab, run analyses on these wines, and that's where my palate started to form. Because before, I was 18, I couldn't drink, even though I, hush hush, yeah. But I'd never drunk wine. To me, it was something that my mom would do, and of course, at 18, you're not going to do what your mom's doing. So that's just kind of where it began, and everything that he taught me, and even later on, Renato Saiz, who's local, and Arturo Villarreal as well. He taught me great things.
So just general information about how to, work and understand wine and study it.
Yes.
Awesome. So when you look back at your career, which is still blossoming, I mean, you have a long road ahead of you, but what would you say is one of your proudest achievements to date?
Wow. These questions, they're coming hot and heavy. Proudest achievement. I suppose when I finished the UC Davis extension program, I was a person that was always, I don't want to say against school, but it just was never for me. It kind of goes back to what I did as an 18-year-old. I dropped out of school because I didn't like it. So it took me longer than it should have. It's a 2-year program, but I was also doing it while I was a winemaker, so it was like double duty, and I was having kids, and there's just a lot of things. But it, that's probably what I would say is my biggest accomplishment. It's just finishing what I started with school,
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially when you say you weren't much of a student, and there you are. But funny enough, you're a student of wine for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's true. And, I learned so much better by doing. That's always how it's been. And I've learned, of course, I'll never take away anything from UC Davis. I learned a lot more technical things than I would have learned down here, but actually being hands-on and doing is where I learned, so much. I was a sponge back then. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and then all of a sudden I was all in.
Yeah. Well, and it's good too, because when you have a technical foundation, you can apply the learning things with a lot more knowledge, because you can put it in context to everything and then grow from there.
Yeah, the puzzle pieces, come together. I kind of liken it to they're floating around, and something clicks, and there they go.
Okay, so another puzzle piece. See, I'm going to throw in. I gave you a little break there to take a breath, but I want you to complete this sentence for me. A table without wine is like
church.
They have wine in church, don't they?
But not for, I suppose, pleasure.
Got it. So, well, I want you to imagine a scenario. We're sitting at a dinner table. You've got an extra seat next to you, and the wines that you have made are sitting on the table. From any walk of life, living or deceased, who would you want to share a bottle of your wine with? It can be personal, or they could be famous.
Okay, I suppose I'll do 2.
Okay. We can make 2 seats at the table. There's enough wine.
It's hard, but I'll do 2. 1 personal, and then 1 maybe pseudo-famous. I would like to share it with my mom. She obviously she's actually the reason why I work here, because she was the tasting manager. So I kind of left that out. She was the tasting manager here, and I said, I need a job. What's there at the winery? And sure enough, there was something I could do. Now, someone else, I don't know if it's specific. I would like to, and it's impossible to know, the first person to ever bottle a bottle of wine. That's who I'd like to have try mine and see what they think. Because it's thousands of years old. No one would know who the first is. But if we could, I suppose that would be the one.
That's a really interesting answer. Making me think now. Okay, we're almost finished. I got a couple more questions for you. One is, you're being sent to a deserted island. What 3 wines would you want to take with you? And they could be anything.
Anything. Okay, well, Vermentino's my favorite, so it's going to be a Vermentino, either mine or someone else's. I don't discriminate. It's going to be, even though I hate making it, a dry rosé, Provence style. And then it's going to be a big red. Something for every occasion, I suppose, is what I would say.
And big red going in Rhone, Bordeaux, Spanish.
I'll say Petite Syrah. We do a standalone Petite Syrah here, and that's kind of what I gravitate towards when I'm drinking reds.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, there we go. So now we get to play the little game of pairing wine with music, and you've given me a few wines that I get to pick now. Okay. So we are going, you're going to tell me a genre or a song or a musician that you think of that kind of embodies the wine. So we're going to start with your beloved Vermentino.
Okay. Vermentino, I would say it's like sublime, beachy, kind of calm, not overly crazy, even though it can be. Just real easy to listen to or drink, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then your mom's beloved Pinot Grigio.
That would be like maybe classical, more finesse, a little bit straight and narrow. Yeah.
Okay, and your big Petite Syrah.
That would be like grunge music. Rock and roll type, it has a time and a place, but maybe it's not always right for everyone. Yeah. Okay.
You're so close. You can take a deep breath in just one more second. Super quick, 2-part answer. One is, what wine region in the world is at the top of your bucket list to explore?
It would be probably Bordeaux. The classic sense. Even though we may not be known for it down here, you have to have love for Bordeaux. You have to know when you're drinking a Bordeaux wine. If you don't, then there's something wrong. So, you should be able to smell it right away. That's where I would go. They have such a rich tradition as well, and they do things how they've been doing them for hundreds of years, if not longer. So I like the tradition that they have and they hold.
Oh, great. And then for somebody, this is the second part of it and the last one. If somebody wants to come and taste your wines, how can they find you? Where can they find you? What can they experience?
Yeah, our website is Danza del Sol Winery. We're here in Temecula Valley on Deep Portola Road. Masia de Vinya as well. We're about a mile apart from the 2 wineries. So everything is direct to consumer. We have a robust wine club. We ship wine, but if you're not here, you have to buy it online, or we ship for wine club members. We ship quarterly. Mm-hmm. It's great benefits for that. Free tasting for 4 people, and they offer discounts. But that's the only way to taste our wines locally.
So head out to Temecula Valley and come out to Danza del Sol. Masia de la Vinya, 2 wineries, 1 winemaker. Justin, thank you so much for joining us on Wine Soundtrack, and I hope you're ready to take a deep breath.
Thanks for having me, and I hope to meet some of the listeners here.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Let's go taste.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack USA. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.